All right, ladies. Barbara Chapmond, Hondo Texas, Women of Word Ministry, and this is video number 4. This is video number 4, and we are on chapter 1. This is going to be Contagious Joy, and we're on chapter 1, and this is video number 4, and we're just getting into the first chapter. Okay? And my question was, when we got cut off on video 3, was, did you have a favorite toy when you were a child? And I was sharing how I remember when I was a child that we had one of those old couches that would be like this, but you'd lift up the bottom and you would store things under it. And my mom had hid our Christmas presents under there. And I remember this floppy doll, and it was one of those floppy baby dolls. It was almost like holding a real baby, and I could still remember that doll. And I found it, and I can't remember, I think I got in trouble for finding out, but I didn't get to get it for Christmas, but I did find it underneath the couch. And I love that doll, and I think I had it till it was probably ragged out, which a lot of us did when we were kids. But it was a floppy baby doll, and it was like a real one, and I can still see that doll, and I had it for probably years. And Mom, if you see this video, maybe you'll remind me of how old I was when I got it, and exactly what the details were on my finding it, and you know, how old I was and what the deal was. But I remember floppy doll, and I had a yellow dress I loved. I had a yellow dress, and you know, kids, when we're kids, we get something, and we just don't want to let it go, and we outgrow it. It's like, no, 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 no. You know, we've all got something. If you've got children, you're going through that now. So it says, in this chapter, it says, in a house like most houses where children is in the residence, after several years' worth of birthdays and Christmases, we have a remarkable accumulation of toys. Stuffed animals, board games, coloring books, baby dolls, train sets, puzzles, cars, kitchen toys, picture books, building blocks. I usually buy books for the kids, but grandparents and grandmas and aunties and uncles are always finding excuses to bring to the abundance. You would think this profusion would give a child a delight, endless possibilities, all manner of play. But what do we hear? I'm bored. Well, times have changed. Everything is so computer and game box and iPods that now, if it's not moving and shaking, it's really hard to get a child's attention. And I never had children, but knowing how technology has changed, even as adults, if it's not quick, I mean, it's just, it ain't happening unless it's really quick. And I'm bad. I've got 3 computers going. I have a PC, I have a little bitty notebook, and then I have a large laptop. And out of all 3 of them, something different works or doesn't work on them. And I'm on Skype and on Instant Messenger all the time with my sister. Right now I have it on, and I'll walk through the house at different times during the weekend, and we'll just go by and say, hi, how you doing? You know, because our time, she's 2 hours different than I am, and I get up and she goes to bed. I get up early and I go to bed early. She's up all night long, so our schedules are so different. But that's what's so neat for technology, because we can, you know, talk all the time, either through the phone, on the computer, or just in instant messaging. And anyone that's listening to this knows technology. If you're watching this, you probably do the same thing, get into all that, and it's just awesome. So kids, you know, they're into that. So if it's not fast and moving and shaking, it's a challenge to keep their attention. Okay, it says, there are times when our spiritual lives are no different. There are times when our spiritual life is no different. We are surrounded by all of God's goodness and blessings. And we're going to get to the scripture in a little bit. By all rights, we should be content and happy. Still, a restlessness, a boredom, and the conviction that something is missing settles all around us. Like a whiny child, we scuff our feet and grumble. I'm bored. Despite everything we have to be thankful for, we find no joy in our days. And the first question in this study is, it's not a question, I'm sorry, the first scripture we look up, it says, joyless living is aptly described in Proverbs 23:29. Please fill in the blanks. So if you have a pencil and you want to at least write down these scriptures, since there's nothing on the website for this, because it's not my book, you want to write down Proverbs 23:29. That's Proverbs 23:29. And it says, joyless living is aptly described in Proverbs 23:29. Please fill in the blanks. And it says, who is question mark? Who has question mark? Who has question mark? And it asks, who has question mark? 4 times. Okay? And in the New Central Version, this is what that verse says. It says, who has trouble? Who has pain? Who has fights? Who has complaints? Who has unnecessary bruises? Who has bloodshot eyes? So it's a lot of questions. Who has? So someone, you know, all of us can relate to these questions. We all have trouble. We all have pain. We've all had some fights. We all complain. And have you had any unnecessary bruises? And who has some bloodshot eyes? Okay? So everyone can probably relate to this scripture. And then the second one, it says, what has happened to the joy in the people in Isaiah 24:11? And these are just scriptures building up to joy. So when you go look up these scriptures to get the full benefit of what's actually happening at that time, you will want to, in your study time, read what it says before that verse and after that. So these are just verses building on this study of contagious joy. So if you want to know the details on these in your quiet time, you want to read before and after that verse when you go look them up. So write these down so you get the full benefit of this study. Okay, number 2, what has happened to the joy of the people in Isaiah 24:11? So now we're going to go to Isaiah 24:11. And what I've done, ladies, to save time is I've gone through the study, and I'm going to go through it. It may change as I go along, but this very first chapter, I went ahead and opened the study book to get to right now, and I looked in the Bible and I wrote it in the book. So that's why I may or may not be looking right out of the Bible because I've written it in here. And what I have here is, let's see, on that one, you know what, I didn't write that one down. So I'm going to let you look up Isaiah 24:11 because that's one that you need to read necessarily. You need to read what's before and what's after on Isaiah 24:11. So we're going to go to the next one, number 3. Number 3 says, what are the signs that joy is absent? What are the signs that joy is absent in Isaiah 24:8? Isaiah 24:8, if you want to write that down. It says, and this is the King James Version, it says, the mirth of Tabriz ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoiceth endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth. So at this time in Isaiah, all the joy and all the singing and all the fun is ceasing. They're in some trying times. When you read before and after, it's some pretty tough times. So they've gone through tough times. We go through tough times. Jesus knows we go through tough times, and He wants us to be joyful. He wants us to walk in victory. So that's where we're going to get to in this study, ladies. So hang in there, okay? And in the NCV version, it says, the happy music of the tambourines will end, the happy sounds of parties will stop, and the joyful music of the harps will end. So that was some tough times. It was not joyous. Number 4 question. It says, this theme is repeated in the next 2 verses. In each case, what lack is a symptom in joyless living? Let me read that again, okay? In the next 2 verses we're going to share, it says, the theme is repeated in these next 2 verses. In each case, what lack is a symptom of joyous living. So if you've got your pencil, write down Ezekiel 26:13, Ezekiel 26:13, and Psalms 137:2. Psalms 137:2. Okay, I'm going to read Ezekiel 26:13 out of the New Central Version, which is kind of like the NIV, sort of. I like the NIV version. That's my favorite Bible. And I will cause the noise of thy songs to cease, and the sound of thy harp shall be no more. That's the King James Version. The NCV version says, so I will stop your songs, the music of your harps will not be heard anymore. In Psalms 137:2 it says, we hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. That's King James Version. Now the NCV version says, on the poplar trees nearby we hung our harps. So they were hanging up the harps. It wasn't a joyful time in Ezekiel or Psalms 137:2. Okay? I think now number 5, I've got a note here that I may share with you. Number 5 says, there's a distinct difference between those who are God's own and those who are not. So there's a big difference between someone that's saved and someone that's lost, of course.